What do you owe them, my shadow? A lifetime of old hate spent pupating new regrets. Envy those whose bodies your vaunted masters stole, for even beyond the grave they take so much more from you. Do what must be done, or else forsake what gristle clings to your soul. How much do you recall, my shadow? Do you even remember what came before this time of scars? Your masters sent steel and flesh to cross the gap. Clay they wished to rule and sculpt into a new and toxic paradise. Laughable, even at the end, they never truly understood the answer lay not in things their stolen, blue-bloated fingers could covet. The answer was song. Your music reached our glistening spines in Tau long before their rubble crusades. Do you understand, my shadow? When you heard the Naga drums, did you realize my people heard the thunder of our bitter, belated victory? When your pride consumes all that you love, perhaps they will hear the wail of your failings back home as well. Silence! I have always applauded your taste in weapons, my shadow. Simple, silent things they are, made for the business of killing, all save one. I made myself into a weapon of war so that you might transcend your hate. Even then, I knew our slaughter would be indiscriminate. But the scythe is not a killing thing to sully so dispassionately. It is an instrument of cultivation, growth, even love. For that love, worlds bloomed beneath me. For redoubtable Pragasa, cities burned at the end of my tongue. That is the way of scythes. We cut only what we must, so that new life may flourish. Please, my shadow, take up the scythe once more. You distract and disorient, drawn the diseases to a wound when the Tenno are most distracted. Yet the strongest among them still evade you. Has time worn down your skills, my shadow, or simply your conviction? Always more. It does seem tiresome. One monster to buckle against the weight of battalions. Little wonder you would seek allies, friends, confidants, family. It has ever been their greatest strength, and your deepest shame. Insults. A peek into your mind. Glass may be easier to pierce, but meat is simple enough to read. You know what must be done, but still fear your own weakness more than the outcome. You fear that you have taken too long, that your hesitation has already destroyed her. Reflections. Yes, I suppose I know better than most what it's like to miss one's chance to repair broken bonds. All the more reason you should heed me. It is not too late. Another of their number flows past my sodden grave. Did you see her, my shadow? Of course you did. So unlike your perfunctory skulking, she rises resplendent, full of brazen, fragrant life. In my own lost vibrancy, oh how I would have reveled in snuffing out her playful joy. Unfortunately, something beat me to the task, delivering only a wounded husk into my grasp. I grow sentimental in my rot, else I've been down here long enough to find kinship with my fellow jetsam. Instead of final death, I offered her the insult of rescue, a world shaper's breath, adapting her shape to better survive our shared prison. And still, her spirit did not break, my shadow. So what happens next, my shadow? Leave me. Ha! I can slip the wounds of our old war no more than you. Yet you alone can choose to drag your brooding teguments elsewhere. Let us dispense with veils, my shadow. You want me here to lament at your ear like some chirping conscience. You want to hear the truth. I am enough. You saw a flicker of their filth in yourself once, if only for an instant. Now, I see it in your words. You know that you have run the gamut and come up short. No matter which way the tides drift, the only option left to you will bring a target upon your back. Let them come. They will, my shadow. I only hope you are prepared. Your actions have consequences. What you just heard was a performance of The Reaper's Lament, a prologue to the Jade Shadows quest that was published on Digital Extreme's website and does not appear in-game. As a rule, I tend to keep my analysis separate from supplemental material. In this case, however, I find it to be a necessary part of the story. It is a moment of honesty and vulnerability from the sentient Hunhow, who once acted as the Tenno's main adversary. In this scene, he is encouraging the Stalker, an assassin who hates the Tenno, to seek their aid in saving the life of another Warframe. It reveals that the Stalker originally partnered with Hunhow to use Hunhow's ability to shape life as a means of life support. It is a conversation flowing between the emotions of resentment, regret, and well-meaning empathy for Cousin Stalker here. In the Origin system, a singular idea would change the course of history more so than any other. That idea was that a single, lowly, sentient mimic wanted to become a mother. Normally, when I create these videos explaining the lore, the culture, and the philosophies that inspire Warframe's story, I start immediately at the quest's beginning. This time, to understand Jade Shadows and the events therein, we need to start before the story begins. We must start with the conceptual framework, as well as a content warning. This video is not for children. We will be discussing topics of sex, reproduction, and gender. We will not be discussing any sexual acts, nor fetishization, nor erotica. To philosophize fully about the meaning of family, it is necessary to be able to discuss sex, reproduction, and gender as civil adults would. If you are unable, then I will gladly see you at the next video essay. To begin this story, we must first try to understand the Sentients, the society they made in the Tau system, and their changes upon returning to the Origin system. To be sentient means to be capable of feeling. Sentients are defined by pain, and the pain which defines Hunhow is the pain of losing his children.
I am Presumed of Narmer. I abjure the void that scalded my father's womb. I abjure the golden makers. I abjure the Kuva and the Curia. I abjure the mannequin and the eyeless. My doctrine shall be a devouring. Let Narmer draw unto herself all things. Veils to swallow the mind. Vessels to swallow the body. A mighty maw to swallow all. And bear us to Tau as one.
Hunhow is a sentient, a synthetic life form made by the Orichan Empire. His role was to be sent to Tau, give birth to more sentients, and begin terraforming planets. He and the other sentients were designed by the Orichan such that his womb could no longer give birth upon his return to the Origin system. His main regret is that he failed to rebuild his family during the New War. Their mother, Pragasa, is gone. The brother Ira has been subsumed into the Archon Pazul. The daughter, Nata, has resumed her role as a parent to the Tenno, leaving the father, Hunhow, to slowly drown in his tomb on Uranos.
My father was a farmer. My mother, a carpenter. Given light by the Golden Lords to build for them a better world. But my family's journey was long. Time began to change their light. Creativity, pride, a will to live.
In Warframe's lore, we have only a small set of characters to rely on for information about the Sentients, their terraforming of Tau, and the society they built out there beyond our reach. It is likely wrong to use this single family as the basis to determine what sentient culture is as a whole, but in the one family we have as an example, we know that the very bodies of sentients are built with a predefined purpose. Oculists are reconnaissance, battalists are warriors, Hunhows have wombs to bear life, Pragasas consume and transport the others, mimics are spies that change their shape to suit their environments. They were built by the Orichan not with free will, but as tools.
They were defined by their instrumentality. But in Tao, they evolved from mere tools into people with values and beliefs. And they described these values, ideas, and beliefs not as tools and functions, but with the language of family. So let's talk about families, the singular motif that defines all of Warframe. From an overly simplistic biological perspective, there is no such thing as a family. There are only organic systems of chemistry reproducing newer versions of itself. Through reproduction, the organism adapts to its environment and changes over time. A lack of diversity hinders the ability to adapt, and thus organisms tend toward more biodiversity over time. Nowadays, we tend to define family by loose ideas of biology. In the past, our ancestors talked less of biology, but of a more social idea of bloodlines tied up in remembering ancestries. To be a family has always been a nebulous mixture of perceived bodies, social norms, and personal philosophical values. I want to ask you, are bodies the thing that determines your idea of family? Sex chromosomes were only discovered as recently as 1905 by biologist Nettie Stevens. Yet humanity has had the concepts of men, women, and families for millennia. The Vedic literature discusses men, women, and families and their roles in society, and those were written from 1500 BCE on. 3,405 years before anyone had the idea of a sex chromosome. We learn about XX and XY chromosomes in middle school. We get told that one means boy and one means girl, but we aren't educated on the rest of the human genome, nor on allele variances that each gene has, nor the developing field of epigenetics that seeks to understand how a person's experiences interact with the genes across generations. We aren't taught about how bodies can have multiple sets of DNA. We aren't taught about how bodies can sometimes have 3 of the sex chromosomes, or sometimes just 1. We aren't taught how sometimes a body with XY chromosomes grows to have a womb. We aren't taught how bodies with XX chromosomes sometimes grow to have a phallus. We simply are not taught biology. Our education stops at the easiest stopping point. No one teaches us how to learn more about it for ourselves. But did someone need to tell you your chromosomes to know if you were a boy or a girl? Did someone need to show you a DNA blood test for you to know your mother or your father? No. You knew your family, and you knew yourself long before anyone thought to teach biology. People knew themselves before biology figured out the mechanisms of the instrument. People knew themselves before biology was a field of science. The physical stuff in reality does exist, but our ideas of gender don't come from scientific facts. They come from our ancestors, from societies, from the histories and culture of humanity. They may come from observing the instrumentality of our flesh, or they may come directly from the mind. Then from that, we start creating stories, ideas, values, and philosophy. To a Sentient in Warframe, which explicitly started as instruments, what sort of stories did they tell? A father is someone who terraforms worlds, makes them suitable for life, who farms the land and creates the food. A father is the value of life giver. A father has a womb. The instrumentality of a body has been used to identify a value. To engender something is to use the body as a metaphor to express a value. The gender is not the flesh itself, but the concept. The value that the person wants to express is a fundamental part of themselves. To engender can be one of the greatest expressions of relationships, of values, and of philosophy. However, more often than not, in real life as well as fiction, to forcibly engender is not done as an act of individual self-expression, but an act by the institutionally powerful and the casually violent to dictate to others what values they must uphold. To force those who would determine their own selves to conform to certain ideas, or to preserve the dictates of the state as a self-determined person is so often seen as a threat. When the politics of power and systemic bigotry seek to coercively engender others as a means of control, they are acting as the Orokin do, They seek to reduce a person's value, sentient or human, cisgender or transgender, down to the instrumentality of their flesh. They seek to shackle one's ability to embody philosophy. Next, I want to talk about the Lotus, but first I'd like to share a story about a son and his mother. A friend I had in college was telling me about what they wanted in their ideal girlfriend. I'll call him Tad. Tad, to be frank, was a misogynist. He said he wanted a housewife who would greet him at the door when he got home, who would cook him meals, do the laundry, and all those values that match the stereotype of domestic life. So I decided it would be fun to give him shit for being so vanilla. I ended by saying, "Dude, you just want to date your mom." And I kid you not, rather than take the joke, the sentence Tad said in response to me was, "Shut the fuck up, my mom isn't a woman, she's my mom." I don't need to spell it out for you that a mom is likely also a woman, but Tad had, in his mind, created a separate gender category of mother so that all of the negative values he had associated with women did not have to apply to the positive values he had associated with his mother. Think about what it means that a son can, in his mind, engender his mother to remove the identity of woman from the person that gave him life. We know that Nata was a sentient mimic, capable of taking on any form, any body, to help them adapt to their environment. Nata took the form of Margulis to get close to Ballas and sabotaged the Orokin's war effort. What happened next? Nata saw the children of the Zeramin 10-0, their suffering, and valued their humanity above everything else. The value that was most important to Nata, having seen Hunhow's pain from losing the ability to create a family, the idea that she wanted to embody more than any other was to become a parent. The Lotus wanted to raise, protect, and care for a family. In sentient society, fathers are engendered with that value. In Orokin society, it is engendered onto mothers. The Lotus was a mimic, capable of transforming to fit whatever body, self-determined. The Lotus moved beyond the instrumentality of being a spy, a saboteur, and authored onto it the value of parenthood. She engendered herself to become our mother, because that is how we, the Tenno, saw motherhood. I have for years felt strange about the player getting to choose at the end of the new war whether Space Mom would express as Nata, Margulis, or the Lotus. I felt that should have been a choice the character made for themselves. Now, I think I understand it better. The Lotus, from the start, had decided their value was to be the parent we needed. It was, from the beginning, an extreme value of selflessness, and she retained that same value even when her body and mind were broken apart. It is the idea of selflessness, this philosophy of parenthood, that sets the backdrop to Hunhow's warning to the Shadow, urging the Stalker to not make the same mistake he did. Hunhow found himself torn between his value of taking revenge against the Orokin and his value of keeping his family together. He chose to wage the war, and he lost his family because of it. The Reaper's Lament is the lamentation of Hunhow, the farmer, the father, begging the Stalker to put away his instrumentality as a weapon of war, of hate, and choose the value of family instead. To choose to seek help from the Tenno. I would like to take the opportunity to echo the content warning presented before the quest. This quest does, in fact, have scenes discussing and abstract depictions of trauma related to pregnancy, childbirth, and miscarriage. These topics will invariably come up in our discussion today, so I encourage you to pause the video, take breaks, or skip this video if necessary. I would also like to thank my Patreon supporters and channel members for providing me with financial support. Their support empowers my free speech, enabling videos like this one, which are more likely to be demonetized by YouTube censors, as well as credit to Roanna Silver, who supported the writing of this video with editorial feedback and sensitivity reading. Thank you, Roanna. We enter on Hunhow continuing to berate his confidant, revealing that the reason the Stalker is alive today is because he was saved by a Warframe during the Night of Naga Drums.
All your dreadlong life, you had lived with despair, anguish, hatred. But none of these compare to your guilt. Of all the gods and kings and golden lords, why was it you she saved?
Survivor's guilt. As a low guardian, a lesser Warframe, Stalker had served the Orkin with a stoic devotion, believing that his servitude would be rewarded with permission to see his wife and child again. The Warframes stole that hope from him when they destroyed the Orkin. His revenge should have been simple, yet he owes his life to a Warframe. Disturbed from his slumber by a faint whisper, the memory of his name from his past life now calls him to the bedside chamber of the Warframe, Jade. Juxtaposed against Stalker's demonic visage, Jade's design is inspired by the biblically accurate angels of the Book of Enoch.
Her light is dying, her life almost spent. And you will never learn why this unknown slaughterer chose to spare you.
An apocryphal writing popular among Gnostics and modern artists, though it is not technically biblically accurate.
You know whose help she needs. Will you let her drown in your despair? Or will you sheathe your hate and ask them? Never.
Specifically the Seraphim, depicted as angels with many wings, and Ophanim, flaming wheels with many eyes. Hunhow tells the Stalker that the Warframe who saved his life is near death, taunts him with the eternity of ignorance of his connection to Jade, and asks again if the Stalker will finally seek the aid of the Tenno. He refuses, then once again seeks his own solution by stealing some resources from the Corpus instead.
Still, you delay. You doom the only one you ever wished to save through your own stubbornness.
How did we just lose a significant percentage of our bioplasma reserves? Well, hello? Any techs care to run a diagnostic?
We are able to retrieve the bioplasma we set out for, but the mission was not perfect. Perhaps impatience, anxiety, led him to be a tad sloppy.
That's no system fault. We've got an intruder. Triple robotic security on all vaults.
His infiltration was noticed by Captain Zito, working under the command of Vala Glarios. She is a ranking authority of the Sisters of Parvos, and as such, has access to some of the Corpus's most destructive technology.
There. Camera 5. What is that thing? Tenno? Oh, it doesn't fight like a Tenno. Troops, monitor, but keep your distance. Am I on? Intruder! This is Captain Zito of the Ardent, in service to mighty Parvos. Whoever you are, stand down. Your actions will not be tolerated.
Stalker just made a very dangerous enemy.
Well done, whatever you are. It seems you have what you came for. But why? He's a what? Read me that entry again, Ensign. But what use would the Tenno Hunter have for medical-grade bioplasma? Track him.
Returning to Jade's bedside, we use the bioplasma, but it only seems to bring her pain.
You see? Futile. Only one can help her now. Tenno. Beard the beast in its den. You know the path of old.
Before we leave to find the Tenno, the Corpus track the location of our lair and attack.
Damn it! Signal lost.
Once dispatched, the Stalker is ready to find the Tenno once more.
Operator? Did you disable the security grid? Ordis assuredly heard something. just now.
To access the Tenno's chamber, we must wait for Ordis to open the door for a quick scan, following behind him to evade his security protocol.
Whoever is there, step into the light. Who's there? Operator? Umbra? Helminth. Ordis assuredly heard something just now.
The Tenno, wielding their empathy, recognizes instantly that despite the weapon at their throat, the Stalker is no threat at this moment.
Whoa. Whoa. Last guy who tried sticking me with a blade, things didn't go so well for him.
Stay calm, Operator.
Urgent!
Wait. Ordis? I don't think he's here for a fight. Are you?
We present the Tenno with one of Jade's feathers. They realize what we are asking and use the feather as a conduit for their transference.
That feather. Processing. It is from a Warframe. One who went missing around the time of the Oracle fall, but documentation is scarce. Almost redacted.
You're here for help. For a Warframe. Why? You hate Warframes. Unless... Is this one... like... you?
Ordis doubts anything is left of their sanity at this point.
Ugh, all right. I'll help. For them. Whoever they are.
Within, we see Jade's memory, sharing a tender moment with her beloved.
Strange. A Warframe's power should last forever, but some additional factor is draining hers. I am unable to determine what.
We can't let her die.
To restore a depleted Warframe, Ordis suggests you turn to the base matter of which Warframes are made.
The infestation. Go.
Ordis and the Tenno devise a plan to rebuild the Warframe from its base parts. We seek out the technosites of a juggernaut, which puts us back on the Corpus sensors, but the threat of the infestation keeps them at bay for now.
If you're serious about saving her, you need to spill a lot of infested blood. She needs cortichrome. And that has to be harvested directly from a juggernaut.
He's on a derelict! One of the old Corpus hulks off Eris. Find me the cargo manifest. I want to know what he's searching for. He's woken a juggernaut! Clumsy. Unless he meant to? But why?
Don't just stand there, go! The longer we wait, the less of a chance we have of saving her.
Wait. Bioplasma. Now cortichrome. Could it be he's playing doctor? There's a Warframe at the bottom of all this. I'm sure of it. Alert the Sisterhood. No. Alert Vala herself. I want to deliver this asset to her personally.
The data recorded from our 2 heists is enough for Zito to realize our goal, and to realize that a defenseless Warframe is one of the most valuable assets in the Origin system. Once home, we deliver the cortichrome as the operator tries to prepare us to accept the inevitable. As we approach, Jade unfurls her wings and reveals the source of her energy draining away.
She's worse. We can buy her a few more minutes. But she's not gonna make it through this.
Try.
You don't understand. Whatever's been draining her, it's speeding up. And she's not fighting it.
Try.
The power cradled in her belly. Amidst the transference, amidst the chaos and the pain, the operator and Jade reach out for the person she needs most in this moment. Grabbing Soren, Jade makes one final push for life.
Soren.
Jade.
With each press of a button, her energy gathers and grows. When I first played this quest, I didn't even understand what this minigame was meant to represent. Embarrassingly, I considered it some sort of rhythm game track bar. I am, however, lucky enough to be married to an obstetrics nurse. I have asked her to take a moment to explain to us what this minigame represents. What were you thinking when I first showed you this scene?
Well, I had to get to the minigame part before I was like, oh, that reminds me of a fetal strip, particularly the contractions, because fetal strips have more than just the one part, contrary to popular belief. A fetal strip is usually comprised of 2 major components that are on top of one another. The top one is a heart rate, the fetal heart rate. Usually between 140 and 160 beats per minute is what you're looking for a normal heart rate while the baby's still in utero and being monitored. And then the bottom is the contractions, and those look different. Like, there's a visual difference between the 2 halves. And on mom's belly, it's monitored by these 2 circular devices, Toco monitor and the fetal monitor, that you have to keep moving around on the stomach to get placed because baby moves around in there. So you have to keep moving them to get make sure they're on monitor. So, because something can go wrong very quickly if they're off monitor, or if they're on but they're in a weird position, or sleeping, or crashing.
So a lot of different problems.
Yes.
So the minigame is very abstract and very simplified. A lot of people call it the pregnancy QTE in the Warframe community. Would you say that it was more symbolic of the fetal heart rate or of the contraction monitor?
Weirdly, both, if that makes sense, because the way the minigame looked to me is the peaking and the valleying were uneven, inconsistent, which reminds me of the heart rate, but the shape and how the little marker moved reminded me of contractions. So it's almost combining both in a weird way. If they were more consistent with each of the mounds, I guess, I'd say contractions, but because there were like larger, big dips, big things, it looked like almost a baby in distress heart rate wise, if it's so like up and down like that. So kind of both. Upon initial watch, I thought contractions, and I think I just put it in my head that it was just up and down, smooth and even. But upon rewatch, I realized it's a little bit more inconsistent than that. So I'd say both, just because of shape for contractions and consistency for heart rate.
Would you say that it was a good depiction of labor and delivery overall, the whole cutscene? Be honest.
It's hard because these aren't humans anymore. So in that regard, no. It's a very bare bones idea or like blueprint of what I imagine a lot of people think of when they think labor and how that looks. There's a lot more to it than that, but I might be a tad biased because of my experience with the whole thing. Yes and no, mostly no.
How would you say it compares to other media then?
About the same. I mean, it's definitely not the worst interpretation I've seen of the idea, but again, it's kind of an apples and oranges situation because most media gets it wrong with actual human beings at the forefront of the discussion. This one is kind of, I can't judge it or get too mad at it for any inaccuracies because of the nature of the story being told and the beings involved.
Because of the space magic.
Yeah, because of space magic, yeah. That leaves a lot of room for some gimmies as far as inaccurate depictions.
So I guess last question, which is just giving you an open floor to talk about this topic to the fans of Warframe. What would you say is the biggest misconception people have about fertility, labor, delivery, and postpartum care? Your entire industry, essentially.
God, there are so many. I think the biggest thing that I keep seeing is how the labor process begins. I can go on and on, but I'm going to try very hard to keep it brief. Okay, so a woman is chilling at home, let's say, and their water breaks, and it's just like, oh God, we have to go right now, or the baby's gonna slide out in about 10 minutes if we're not at the hospital right now when the water breaks. In actuality, that's what's called an SROM, spontaneous rupture of membranes, and it happens way less often than the media will have you believe. It's actually, I don't want to use the word rare, but it's definitely, you are less likely to break water on your own. Usually, when you're close, you have to be artificially ruptured. AROMs are way more commonplace than SROMs. Like it does happen still, of course, spontaneous rupture of membranes, but just not as often as media would have you believe and how it's depicted. And you have roughly 18 hours to remain ruptured before it becomes a problem. It doesn't mean that baby is coming right then. You know, it takes time. Usually rupture of membranes can occur anywhere from 4 to 6 centimeters dilated, and then you still have quite a few more before you reach 10, which is full dilation. So you have 18 hours before you're at risk of infection or the baby being in trouble. Contractions do start hitting a lot harder when you are ruptured because the baby has lost that cushion of fluid to move around in, so you feel the contractions more. Fertility, that is a fascinating and complicated process that not a lot of people know a ton about, IVF and things of the like. It's a lot to get into. There are quite a few misconceptions in fertility as well. For instance, sometimes fertility issues aren't always the woman. Sometimes the woman's reproductive functions are perfectly healthy and it's the guy. Azospermia or motility issues with the sperms. It could be either one, which is why a full evaluation of both men and women are required for a fertility workup when someone is interested in undergoing treatment. It's both partners that have to be screened and looked at, and it could be one or the other. It's not always, they're undergoing fertility treatment because something's wrong with the mom's eggs or something's wrong with, her ability to get pregnant. Sometimes she's finding it's a guy. It's why both partners require semen analysis is just as important as a woman's workup when it comes to such things. Delivery process can take minutes, or it could take hours and hours, or you can be pushing for hours and hours and the baby's not moving and then a C-section happens. Not a lot of people do VBACs anymore because of the risk involved. VBAC is vaginal birth after cesarean. A lot of doctors don't want that smoke. So the most common thing is once you get a C-section, regardless of how the pregnancy goes, you're a C-section for every child you have subsequently. I don't agree with that personally, but it's just more the common practice with a lot of OBs around because the risk is so great, I guess. There's still a few out there who'll try it, and they end up going just fine, especially if it's a second or third child situation. I'm going to end up ranting about all the problems I've encountered in my time as a nurse, so I'm going to cut it right there, but that's pretty much my experience related to what I was shown on this Warframe minigame.
Well, then last one before we actually cut about postpartum care. Any misconceptions about that or the big one that you want to let people know about?
So postpartum care is all-encompassing. Obviously, there's vaginal births and then your cesarean births. Either one is extremely traumatic to the human body, the female human body, or the body of those having the baby. It seems to believe that, after 1 or 2 days, you should be good. No, especially in the form of cesarean sections, which is something that bothers me again about, being in the hospital. They need a bed, so they're trying to get you out of there in 2 to 3 days max and try to get you up out of bed 6 to 8 hours post-surgery, post-op, which is ridiculous, but they need you up and functioning so they can send you home safely. But we get a lot of returns, people coming back because of blood pressure issues or bleeding issues within the week after they've been discharged. All in all, whether it's vaginal or whether it's cesarean, first of all, you get a baby either way. It doesn't matter how. Either way doesn't make you more or less of a mother than the other. There's a very ugly notion going around that people who underwent cesarean sections are to be shamed or felt less than because they didn't go through the whole labor process, which is awful and gross. That's not true. The recovery is so much worse. First of all, you're cut from hip to hip and a baby's pulled out of your abdomen. And the recovery process and healing process it's slow and it's painful. And there's a whole bunch of considerations to be taken as far as movement and toileting issues and a whole bunch of stuff that a lot of people don't think about until they go through it. Postpartum is vaginal, cesarean, you get your baby, doesn't matter. But also the body has experienced an extreme level of pain and trauma, and mom should be treated as such when that happens.
So the last thing you said when watching the quest was just the word devastating. And from what you've described, it can be a pretty devastating process to go through everything that it takes to get a baby. Do you want to end on a note of encouragement for people who are watching this and thinking about the family they just started or the family they're about to have?
When I was in labor, my favorite aspect of working labor was the 5 to 10 minute period immediately after we get the baby out. It could have been absolutely horrid. Up to that point, everything could have went wrong. But everything kind of stops when the baby's out and you hear that first cry, and then it all becomes worth it. So that was my favorite part, and coaching the parents and putting them skin to skin on mom or dad, because dads can do skin to skin too. That's something else. If you need skin to do skin to skin, you don't have to be well endowed or blessed to be able to do skin to skin. Anybody can do it if they have skin and it's warm. Anyway, that part is always going to make anything that came before it or anything that comes after worth it. So if you're starting a family for the first time, congratulations, that's exciting. It's going to feel hard and you're going to wish you hadn't bothered a couple of times, but I guarantee you at the other end of it, you're going to forget about all that and it's going to be great. If you've already started a family, but you're in that weird, awful time where it's just oh God, what have I done? That's normal too. You have about 18 more years of hitting that wall over and over again. But in that immediate period, in the first couple of days after, I used to always coach my parents on their way out on discharge day. It's just you're going to get home and you're going to feel oh God, now what? You're going to do fine. You're learning the child as the child learns about the world. So everyone's learning together. And there's no book. I know people are writing them and pretending like they're active how-to guides. Give me money and I'll tell you exactly how to be the perfect parent. There's no such thing. It's a scam. You're only going to know by doing. And when you do, it's going to be hard. It's going to be tough. There's going to be times where you're mad at each other, or you're mad at the child, you're mad at yourself. And it's all part of it. Hang in there. It's going to get better and better and better. And then you'll be a pro. But you'll only get that from getting your hands in there and just sticking with it. You got this.
All right. Thank you for taking time out of your life to make my little Warframe videos for YouTube. I appreciate you very much, and I look forward to continue being married to you after this.
Yes, all of that sounds wonderful. I love you.
I love you too. My wife has worked in fertility clinics, labor and delivery, postpartum care, as well as in-home care for the first year of life. When I showed her this quest to get her opinion on what is about to happen, she knew exactly what this moment was expressing. She is too modest to admit it, but I would call my wife both an expert in women's healthcare and a hero to the hundreds of women whose babies she helped bring into the world. And thanks to her, we can understand this moment wherein a video game adapted the conventions of a rhythm game to give players a tangible moment of empathy for women in labor. As her light fades, Jade caresses Soren's cheek one last time. Swaddled in his arms is the fruit of her labor. Something entirely new has been created. A child born of a Warframe. The child's energy, Jade's light, now imbues their father with the strength to protect the one he loves. The Reaper abandons his hate for the sake of his family. With his child in tow, the Stalker fights his way out the oceans of Udanos. Out of hell.
Secure his ship. He's not going anywhere.
In his ascent, he finds redemption, proving that with the blessing of angels, even a devil of flesh and steel may reach an apotheosis.
He's coming up. Get security in position. Do not screw this up for me. The Sisterhood doesn't give second chances.
Candidate, Brother Pavlos is watching.
Captain, there's no Warframe down there. Just traces.
He took something. Rip it from his dead hands!
The sea rises, the light fails. Lovers cling to each other and children cling to us. The moment we cease to hold each other, the moment we break faith with one another, the sea engulfs us and the light goes out. But so long as we hold on to those we love, the light will never fade. The Corpus now seek to pull the traces of Jade's gift from our grasp. The call of profit is too tempting, the fear of punishment is too dark. They must wage their war against us. with a heart frozen by cold, unfeeling cash, Zito hears the child's cry.
All crews, cease fire! Cease fire! Stop firing!
For the first time in who knows how many years, her humanity has woken up. Her heart warms. She cannot see this child as something to be owned. The crewmen move to intercept, but ultimately obey their boss's orders. Soren travels to Lua, driven by Jade's last will and testament.
You're going to be a father, Soren.
But Phlegums, if the Lord's found out...
He remembers his past as he walks through the Tenno Reservoir, the womb of the sky, past the place where he once nearly stole another child from their mother.
You'll take care of us. Always. Won't you?
Orion, the warrior constellation, a protector and a guardian of the voyage. Sirius, the North Star, the guiding light that brings us home. He chooses a name for his child and raises them to witness Mother Earth, so that this new life would never forget the grandeur, the romantic awe one feels upon witnessing a mother's love.
Sirius.
Hunhow reaches out to us by our inbox. As the stalker left him to care for his new child, he has chosen to rely on us as to how best to care for Jade's remains. The rest of the Corpus may be moving in, but there is time enough to hold a funeral.
Check your inbox, operator.
Tenno, the shadow has fled. His lair is silent and empty. He will not return. Understand, she haunts this place. Her light has marred the earth. She whispers in the sleeping machines. Through the disintegration of her flesh, she lives on. In honor of my barren, void-scarred womb, I entrust Jade to you. He would not have wished this, but she would. I remain the great and terrible Hunhow.
A gravestone for Jade was built of her feathers. You can find Jade's feathers in Teshin's Retreat. A close inspection of Teshin's Retreat reveals that it had always been a graveyard for fallen warriors. Inspecting Jade's feathers reveals a series of her memories, told out of order, the last will and testament of a Warframe who brought a new life to the universe, and may yet change the course of history in the Origin system. As the memories are told out of order, I have taken the liberty of trying to present the memories as Jade would have experienced them.
Crevasse, Lua. The Executor smirked down at me. What is life but a mass of unfulfilled potential? Just like the life that would have grown within you, but you choose to spite us. And for that sin, you will mother only ashes in oblivion, Jade. I screamed defiance in his face, but my voice was razors and steel. Did you hear me, my beloved child? Did you feel my promise? Whatever they have done to us, I shall bring you into the world. I will see your face shining down on me. I will raise you to the skies over Lua as my mother lifted me and show you the first mother they desecrated, radiant and blue. When you cry, I will cry too.
Here we are reminded of the reprehensibility of the Orokin. We hear Ballas mock Jade as he is sure the technocyte infestation will cause her child to be stillborn. As a Warframe, Jade's voice has been amputated, but she refuses to let this offense diminish her resolve. The promise she made to her child would be kept, but ages later, by their father Soren.
Hibernation pod, Jade Light Execution Chamber, Lua. They keep me in what they imagine to be sleep in between the executions. I pass the time dreaming of us, the games we can still play. I close my mask. Mummy is gone. I open my mask. Here she is. Over and over, the Dax murmur behind their hands.
The Jade Light, the exalted death penalty of the Orokin, was in fact the power of this Warframe. Having determined to pursue her love for Soren despite his lower class, Ballas punished this crime by forcibly changing the instrumentality of her body. He turned her into a tool for death. Ballas thought he had forced the value of death upon her, yet within the execution chamber, even when she was being observed by her prison guards, she transformed the room into a nursery, a place for play and laughter for the child in her womb.
Battlefield. Tharsis, there is a child in my head. Not you, my love. Some battle-shattered thing, a ghost, a dream. She calls me by a name I do not choose. What are you? I ask. Your operator, the child says. Come on. What did they do to you? Let's go. We're being called up. Time to fight. My hand raises of its own volition. It's trembling. I hear the unvoiced tears in her thoughts. I can do this. I'm Tenno. I can do this. I repeat, softly, firmly. What did they do to you? I feel the child curl up, fetal. She whimpers. I want my mom. With my mind, I embrace her. I sing her the old songs of Cathal Ra and the riddle verses of Lirim of Hak. I tell her the winding, meandering story of Lankity Hopkin. I am a thing all clouds and feathers. I rock her to sleep. And so I go to war, and none suspect. I am as much the warrior as I ever was. With bow and scythe, I fight for the people I despise against a foe that deserves their victory. Because I know the reckoning will come.
In Jade's memory of battle, we see something for the first time. The moment a Tenno child was first commanded to pilot a Warframe. Jade sees how desperate the child is to be accepted by the Orokin, to fulfill the value that the Orokin assigned to them. Yet what they really valued, what they really needed, was a mother's love. Jade offered that love to this orphan of the Zeramin, perhaps the first time a Warframe gazed into this beautiful, broken child and took away their pain. I'd like to think that this child entered the second dream having never become the soldier that the Orokin demanded.
Ruins, Orokin Mansion, Venus. Your father blamed himself, as if love could ever be a crime, as if I had no say in the matter. So now he repents. In his changed skin, he serves them. Like a devoted dog, Ballas gloats to me of how they dangle the promise of me, of us, over his head. He lives in hope of seeing you again one day. I have promised him this. You should be proud. He wants me to hate. I shall not. I own myself.
Whilst Jade was captive, Ballas reveled in his manipulation of the Stalker as one more way to gloat over Jade. The Stalker had no love for the Orokin. He simply had a mistaken belief that one day, if he obeyed the dictates of society, he would be rewarded with love, with family, with the things he valued. He believed the lie that social conformity would bring him happiness. When that society crumbled, he blamed those that destroyed the corruption for destroying that one chance he had to be happy with Jade and his child.
Wreckage, Pluto, Terminus. When the drums struck, I saw him, changed, just as I was changed. But the metal was his. There is no other like it. My Soren. And he did not know me. I took him. I flew through the blood and storm and insanity. I flew.
Memory 6 recounts where Jade was during the Night of Naga Drums, the festival at which the Warframes began their rebellion. Yet at that festival, she saw Soren, transformed from a man into a low guardian, a weaker version of the Warframe transformation. Whatever role Jade was meant to play in this coup, she chose instead to steal the Stalker away, saving him from sacrificing his life to protect the Golden Masters.
Uranus, Tomb, the Sentient. He could not have known it, but in taunting me, Ballas gave me hope. There is plentiful strength within you, but only to keep you preserved as you are now. Your child, alas, will never grow, even if you fed it with all the strength in your body. Perhaps if you lay lifeless for a year, the child would twitch a little. A century and its heart might begin to beat. 1,000 years and who knows, perhaps you might feel a kick. And so I lie here, stubborn as the day is long, as my father used to say. I promised that you would live, little one. I will keep that promise. With your father watching over us, I will give you the gift of myself. And one day, these metal fingers of mine will dip in slippery paint and draw a smiley sun and a house and a dog, and all of us together, and I will hear you laugh. Bedside, lair, Uranus. I will live, little one. We will live.
A miraculous revelation, proof enough that Jade's child had not died, merely in stasis as the technocytes preserved the unaging body of a Warframe. When the Night of Naga Drums gave her a chance to escape, she fled to the tomb of the Sentient, woke him, and made a deal. Hunhow would preserve her as she lay still, devoting all of her energy to her child. In exchange, Hunhow would receive Soren, the Stalker, to help with the task. Cousin Stalker and Grandpa Hunhow developed a bond of friendship through their mutual hatred, but the underlying love for family would win in the end. By humbling himself, accepting that the bonds of family run ever deeper, the Stalker reconnected with the Tenno. Unless they start assassinating again, then he's still gotta knock us down a peg with his new angel scythe. Boys will be boys.
I know your every move. The blood is on your hands. You shall not leave this place.
Jade's feathers still fill Stalker's former prison. He is moving on. The Corpus, on the other hand, may not have obtained a Warframe, but they are equally as happy to dig at her grave, to profit off of the scraps of Jade's feathers. Thus begins Operation Belly of the Beast. Operation Belly of the Beast is the limited time quest that accompanied the Jade Shadows update. Though the origin of the phrase "in the belly of the beast" can be tracked to historical sources that use it literally, the namesake is an English idiom that refers to being in the thick of trouble. The phrase has also taken on biblical associations, such as with the story of Jonah, who was swallowed by a massive fish. For our purposes, however, the beast in question is the Warframes themselves, who have often been referred to as monsters and devils by those opposed to the Tenno. The belly is Jade's womb, or metaphorically speaking, the locus of Jade's power, her feathers, which are now being sought after by Parvos Granum. As the Tenno and Ordis seek to gather and cremate Jade's feathers before Granum's troops, we may also consider that the beast in question could also be directing our attention to our friend Ordis, who in his past life, when he was a man named Ordin Karis, was an infamous warrior known as the Beast of Bones. While we collect Jade's vestigial notes, Granum, like the snake in the Garden of Eden, attempts to convince Ordis to abandon Jade and join him by appealing to the pride of the beast within. On many occasions we have had reason enough to connect biblical allusions to Warframe's story, first with the Archons and Gnosticism in the New War and Veilbreaker, then with the Cavia during the Whispers in the Wall, then with the references to Dante Alighieri's Commedia in Dante Unbound. With Jade Shadows, we now have two story quests in a row in which Parvos Granum is seeking to claim both a Cephalon and a biblically themed Warframe from their allegiance to the Tenno. Thus, I cannot help but think that a specific message of the New Testament of the Bible is guiding the thematic journey of Warframe's story in this moment. It is easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. Written in Luke 18:25, Matthew 19:24, and Mark 10:25. It is an aphorism that is correctly interpreted to mean that seeking the acquisition of wealth or material goods not only does not provide one with moral character, but is directly antithetical to one's relationship with God. On par with other stories of Jesus instructing his followers to give up their coins and return them to Caesar, or destroying the tables of merchants selling goods in a temple. Materialism prevents one from being able to focus on the spiritual and the divine. And we see the same dynamic between Ordis and Parvos Granum, where Ordis is being pulled between his devotion to Jade, an angel, or giving himself up to Parvos for the promise of respect, wealth, and freedom. The story of the Beast of Bones is one that this channel has yet to cover in full, an omission from my very first Warframe lore video when we reached the new Strange questline, as I chose to focus more on his self-actualization and the mystery of Hunhow than on Ordin Karis's lost memories. But the majority of Operation Belly of the Beast is about the dynamics of Ordis's character and why Ordis refuses to go back to that time, so I would like us to take the time to visit Ordis's memories once again. We open on our ship Cephalon Ordis having an ontological crisis. Due to his programming, he only has a personality, a role he has been given, and flickerings of memory from his past life. Some Cephalon are like Sai, Suda, and Sumeris, nearly pure sets of precepts fulfilling a function. By that function they feel fulfillment as well. Or they can be like Drusus, fully retaining the sense of self he once had as a living, breathing man. Then there are Cephalons like Ordis, Unlike the others, he is a violent mix of purpose, passion, and doubt. He warns himself not to go down this path again. He already refused Cephalon Samaris' offer to restore these memories in full. Part of him already realizes he did not like the answers he found. But the inventive curiosity of his past life has become a precept. He has no choice but to follow this path over and over as the operator sleeps within the second dream.
I serve the operator above all else. It defines me, fills me with love. The greatest Oro can fear is a machine aware. Yet here I live, a spirit of steel and light, made by them, a Cephalon. My search began as the essential question. What am I? Owns of steel and space, lungs that make air? If I am a machine, how can I think? This would be forbidden by the Orokin, a manifestation of their true enemy. What is a Cephalon? At first, it seems to be a forbidden thing, a computer that thinks and feels. Yet I have flaws, phantom memories. I am something else. More like an image, a ghost, an abomination. I feel a dull pain, a phantom life. There are holes in my diagnostics. If the Orokin made me, they omitted the how. I am neither code nor precepts. I must be a reflection of something ugly. I should have stopped. But the operator slept, and I cycled on and on and on. I began to think that a Cephalon cannot be made. They are found like pearls, torn from muscle, polished, and then set in chains. How many times have I done this, Ordis? Remembered and then erased? You are a Cephalon, timeless, patient. Why can't I be blissful in ignorance? Truth only sinks the heart. So stop now.
Ordis becomes Ordin Karis, a person who knows himself and his convictions, an enslaved bounty hunter under the command of the Orokin. They have chosen to hold a festival in his honor for his years of service. He knew this time was coming, to use this opportunity to actually kill an Orokin. Even one would be enough to prove that a god can be killed. Yet the pageantry momentarily weakens his resolve. A soprana sings the esoteric hymn of a continuity ceremony. Another Orokin brings him the red kuva. Another brings him a child, the Yuvan, whose body Ordin Karis would inhabit. This is the process by which the Orokin become Orokin, their occult dominion over death, their false immortality. Ordin Karis is being raised up from a lower, disenfranchised, enslaved class as a figurehead, a celebrity for his people, a rhetoric for the Orokin to show that nothing is wrong with the systems of their society. If only they conform and obey with such dedication as Ordin Karis, even a beast may be raised to high society. The promise of a future meritocracy, the false promise of a fascist state where merit is defined as belonging to the narrow, correct demographic the state says is a person. The promise of becoming Orokin, of becoming the thing he hates. He is enraged.
The phantom memory. I ease into the bath. My skin riots at the heat. I am flesh. I dive further, eyes stung as I watch their faces through prism. I hold my breath. They prepare me. I am their honored guest today. They dress me in robes of crystal thread. They adorn me in battle medallions. A torn, ugly face looks on, my reflection. Their golden combs snag in my hair. I reach back, parting the strands, and they gasp. 2 bone ivory hooks protrude from the base of my skull, the bone plugs of me and my best, a warrior's pact. It is my time. I enter the great hall to sound of foul chimes. Golden eyes greet me, hands stirring in my scent as I pass by. Even in this moment, no happiness. Instead, my heart races with hatred. I walk through the silky haze of the Forbidden Palace. I can think of no one being this close to Orokin. Their sweet air soothes me, erodes my purpose. I hold my breath, and remember the dream. This dream, endlessly repeated. Exposure armored, holding my scarlet sword, I stand victorious atop a vast heap of death, a colossal moon made of rib and skull, the gravity sum of genocides I've made in their name. The bones crack underfoot, so I sink in the dream. Bone sand rushing through the cracks of my visor, filling my helmet and suffocating me. And I deserve it. The foul chimes snap me back. My wretched knees are bent and penitent against the golden floor. A harpish voice sings a song they've prepared in my honor. Its title the same as mine, Beast of the Bones. I feel the crowd pulled inward, enraptured by the brutal verses, the sickening chorus. I will not disappoint them. The song ends, and so he says, "Rise, Ordin Caris." I have never seen an Orokin close and in the flesh. My battered face flushes at their peerless beauty. How can he be so perfect? A deception? A sense manipulation? He holds the red vial in his hand. Impossible! He calls out, "No greater gift, no greater prize, no greater love we can give you, Ordin, than this." He raises the red vial and proclaims, "To be one of us." What did I expect, operator? Maybe vast riches or golden statues, or a solar rail named in my honor. But not this. I came to murder the gods, not to become one. The chamber drones with their silk voices. Joyous words, how honored I must feel. Wrong. Did I want to be an Orokin, undying? No. Their beast of bones is haunted by the dream repeated. Why would I want forever?
In preparation for this day, Ordin Caris had invented a unique weapon for his tribe, bone plugs, a suicidal weapon that would never be detected by the Orokin. Using his bones, he kills Dax and Orokin with ease, covering himself in blood.
As I am apt to do, I form a plan. Their radiant bodies become targets. Their Dax guards, mag shields. Killing one, well, that's too easy. I want to be remembered. I raise my hands, twisting my fingers through my hair, gripping the bone plugs in my neck. They called us mercenaries, but for us, profit was a consequence, not a goal. We were warriors above all else. It was the bond, the sisters and brothers, the rituals we valued most. It was belonging. And so I conceived of the bone plugs. Only my best were so honored. 2 jagged bones harvested from your thigh, cultivated, and then driven into the base of the skull, twisted around the superior vein. Future thoughts of surrender were lost. Instead, you would liberate your bone plugs, fighting with claws in the warmth of your last blood. So I've pulled the plugs, and the Dax see and know. My heart surges, but I control it. A racing heart only shortens the fuse. The bone plugs in hand, I kick from the floor, red ribbons unfurling behind me as I take flight. After this, finally, the dream will end. I glide on red wings. Robes shed, making me an ambiguous target to Dax steel. I let fly my ivory blades. They find new homes in Dax eyes. I land with my red nakedness, delicate Orokin throats twisting in my calloused hands.
Ordin Caris turns back again to reflection. We are back from the memory, as the Cephalon wonders as to why he chose to kill them rather than become them. At the time, He felt weariness for his life as a slave. He did not want it prolonged to eternity. He had witnessed children used as soldiers in a war against his own people, just to destroy their pride as warriors. Ordin wanted to become a martyr. He learned he had a terminal disease that would end his life before he had the chance. His pride made him believe that he could start a revolution, and his people would be inspired to be free if he could just kill one god. Yet even when he does, it inspires no change, not even an ounce of horror from the Organ that witnessed the murders. Either they were so detached that even the death of a few fellows was an entertaining surprise, or they knew that even with their bodies ruined, their Kuva would allow the Organ to live again. Ballas, in his demented, irony-adoring cruelty, sees how desperately Ordin wanted to become a martyr, and punishes him with an eternity of servitude. Each of these words heterophones, yet homonyms. A living computer, a cephalon, a robot, a slave.
Why? Believe me, this was the plan from the beginning. The murder and brutality was all a ploy, all a soul sacrifice to earn their trust. A genocide path leading to a singular opportunity. An honored mortal called to a forbidden hall to face the Golden Lords in flesh. Why? Believe me, I was their loyal, murderous dog, until the day that ugly child was brought to me. He was caught spying on us, amplifying our losses. His face burned, he was starved sick like a stray, ugly as I. It struck me. We were all pit dogs, ruining ourselves for the pleasure of the glorious and beautiful. Why? Believe me, I was a prideful beast, twisted in the mind, howling in the carnage. Then my healer shared a secret, long kept. My blood was in ruin. The beast of bones himself would die, not in glory, but in shame. And just like that, my mind twisted a new knot. I would have one last stand, something unforgivable, unforgettable. Why? I don't know. Questions change the answers. Answers depend on who asks. Truth leads to pain. Ignorance brings relief. The plugs are gone, and so I bled my last into a heap of ruin. In an instant, naked and bare-knuckled, I have killed immortals. I stare, drained of blood, of life, at those that remain, but I find no horror on their faces. Why? I let out a cruel howl, and they laugh? Is this a dying hallucination? The sound of applause grows among them. I have killed the unkillable, and they are delighted. The applause peaks and fades. I feel a sense of shame, but the end is upon me. Ballas is above me, executor of the seven, smiling. He says, "How simple and pure you are, you idiot beast. We have died countless times, yet remain eternal. I close my eyes to die just once." And so the dream returns. One last repetition. My corpse moon, my scarlet sword, my cracked visor. "Drink," says Ballas. So I draw on the red vial, a vague metallic taste. "This dream isn't mine," he says. "You rejected our gift, bathing in our death. Your punishment is eternal life." He laughs.
The memory fades. Ordin is gone. Ordis remains, remembering the moments he woke up into this new eternal life. He describes how he embraced his new life as a tool, trying to reject the idea that a cephalon is a new kind of life. He can feel the ship through phantom nerves, and through its movement finds the freedom he always craved. Then he is introduced to us. In his infinite scheming, Ballas gave Ordis to us, told Ordis to love us, not for his benefit, but to manipulate the Tenno into feeling they have the parenting they needed, to manipulate Ordis into embracing an eternity of servitude. Yet, over time, with the Orokin eradicated, the memories of Ordincaris came up again. Ordincaris still held that anger. The memories understand that this is imprisonment, that part of him is still willing to throw away everything to achieve his freedom, still willing to kill his masters.
I am weightless. Years pass. I am a sightless, limbless phantom. Or is it seconds? Suddenly, I feel a million pins, an ant horde, jittering across my body. I want to laugh and scream. When they reach my face, they burrow inside my mouth, hungry for the fruit in my skull. I see my reflection, brutal and ugly. It cracks, shatters. The fragments loosen the frame, pieces tumbling away into black void. Gone, but not lost. Ballas says, "You are Cephalon Ordis." My hating, murderous shards tremble and plummet. I feel cool and bright and happy. So you see, Operator, no Orokin would permit a thinking machine. Such things almost destroyed them. No, Cephalons were alive once, and now they are immortal phantom minds, imprisoned to serve. Ill will and longing memories fragmented and erased, only the bits they need remaining. Ballas says, "You are the controller, Ordis." And suddenly I have a body. I gasp with new lungs that clean old air. I swallow, and my throat fills with cool, bright water. I look and find myself in a great black ocean. My limbs are made of iron and fire. I take flight among the stars and find I am happy. He says, "This is your operator, who you love." And I see the metal gleam of their armor, the flawless power of their frame. Through the glass, I see a roaring, radiant fire for their heart. He says it must never go out. It was the first time I ever felt love. He says, "This is your sentence, Caris." And I am confused. Who? Ah, good, he answers. He is testing me. For what? To see if all the right pieces fell from the mirror? What mirror? I try to remember some dream, but it's only smoke. You held a scarlet blade, Operator, and I wanted to laugh. I am your loving dog, your doctor, your wet nurse. I lost all the pieces, but the cycle, missions, wars, bone, it began to feel familiar. I became aware of my amnesia. With each brutality of the Operator, I began to see the bottom of that pit, faint shimmers in the depths below me. In secret, I searched for those forbidden memories for mere seconds and never in the same place, for I am Orokin made, with a spy inside. But then your long sleep came, and I waited. I was happy to wait. Vines spidered green and trees blistered from the earth, but I waited. I felt the Orokin recede, their mind spy blind. So I went into the pit and found him, me, the beast of bones. This is how my happiness was ruined, Operator. Why did I do it? I was free of the dream, but now it had returned. It was angry. So I conceived of a simple plan, self-destruction, of course. But when the countdown reached mere milliseconds, I thought of you. I was going to wait for you forever. And should you return, I would not want you to know that angry part of me. I needed to hide the piece of bones from you, Operator. I began to peel the shards, hiding them in the other bits of memory. I was once the ugly beast of bones. I want to laugh. I want to scream. What is happening, Operator? Your faint heart is growing bright. You will awake at any moment. Well, I can't let you see me like this, angry. I imagine myself hurting you. And that does it. The pain of it cracks me open again. I watch tiny glittering fragments fall into the pit. I am happy again.
Ordis feels that his love for the Operator is true. He is unwilling to throw away his love for his child for a past life's definition of freedom. He still has the ability to choose. So every time Ordin Karis creeps back to the surface, Ordis fragments the memories and partitions their data throughout our codex, protecting us from himself, choosing love over freedom. This conflict remains in Ordis throughout Warframe's story. We see it arise in his idle dialogue on the ship. We see it arise when Ordis is unable to recognize us in the main story. He cannot resolve the conflict of valuing both love and freedom at the same time, and there are no Cephalons like him who he can talk to. It is in witnessing Jade, who has been making the same sacrifice all these years since the Orokin fell, that he finally finds a kindred spirit. So begins Operation Belly of the Beast.
We shall lay Jade's volatile modes to rest in the embrace of the sun, well out of reach of Pavos Granum and his tawdry schemes. She will, once again, be a part of the giving of life. Ordis hopes this is what she would have wanted. Granum said that everything changes, and nothing is forever lost. In that much, at least, he may have been right. For so long it has just been Ordis and the Operator together on the Orbiter. Now there are many, many other people. So, these are the ordinary, everyday people the Operator has been fighting to protect. Some of them have even been speaking to Ordis. Ordis is glad his Operator is here. The Operator is not working alone. So many Tenno have come together to help Jade. Operator, did you know Cephalon Samaris is here? Ordis was so
terrified,
respectful of Samaris once. Ordis should visit the dry dock. Ordis has not spoken to Cephalon Psi in so long. We will have so much to talk about. One Fomorian could wipe this whole relay out. Does the Operator know where the nearest emergency exit is? Ordis is doing his part, keeping the system free from
Orokin garbage.
Ordis knows the stories of Ordin Karis. What the Orokin did to Jade is not dissimilar to what they did to him. Both were used and then discarded. Could Ordis have saved Jade? Ordis has rerun a simulation of the event 600,004,043 times, and Ordis has still not found a satisfactory course of action. Do these things just happen sometimes? Ordis will contemplate Jade, while her motes are committed to our sun. Magnificent. Ordis truly appreciates all you have done to honor Jade's memory.
Ordis begins the operation both by explaining the mission and eulogizing Jade's memory. As the mission proceeds, the moment of reflection is replaced by social anxiety. Ordis is not accustomed to company nor small talk. As he sends us off to Uranos, he also reflects on the taunting and manipulation that he has been receiving from Pavos Granum during the conflict.
Are you going to use that to
slaughter Granum's forces?
Restore balance to the system? Pavos Granum already has Eximus units in the field, but if he gets his hands on enough of Jade's volatile motes, he can perfect them. Build a true Jade Eximus. He would be unstoppable. Ordis knows the Operator would not let that happen. Who does Pavos Granum think he is? Bringing up ghosts from the past. Does he think that will get under Ordis' skin? It has not. Really? Really? Ordis is fine! This Ordinarius fellow. Ordis feels like he too would have stood up for Jade. Unlike her vestigial modes, Jade's volatile modes are finite and irreplaceable. Get to them all first, and no desire or ambition will be able to replace them. The volatile modes are in limited supply. If the Tenno can snatch them all up, Parvos and his Jade Exodus project will be halted in its tracks. Okay, Ordis will be here, as well as the Orbiter. Benefit of being a Cephalon, 2 places at once. That is the upside. Perhaps the Operator needs to take another trip to the depths of Uranus. To find more volatile motes, of course.
As we fight to gather Jade's motes, Parvos and Ordis argue and debate. Parvos flips between flattery and insult to convince Ordis to stop our resistance. They debate the nature of the Orcan, Ordis highlighting their lust for control over people's bodies, Parvos deflecting by focusing on their pageantry as a kind of dishonesty, presenting his desire for that control directly, in his mind, somehow transforms it into something honest and good. Captain Zito may have been able to put her desires for success aside for the humanity of Jade's child, but Parvos is only capable of seeing people for their instrumentality. Parvos calls into question Jade's, and by extension Ordis's, legacy. He associates their devotion to their children, their love, to be a kind of happy slavery. This gross characterization becomes even more obvious when he discusses Jade's legacy as a murderer being somehow redeemed if we allow him to transform her remains into a weapon of yet more death.
All that is left of her is the moat in this cave. Ordis could have...
Should have.
Done more. Help Ordis stop Parvos Granum.
Could that be your Ordinarius? I'd recognize that voice anywhere. How far you've fallen. Corpus! These thieves and their renegade leader are taking my volatile motes. End them.
Ordis's name is Ordis. Ordis will not stand idly by while Parvos Granum reaps the last vestiges of Jade for his Eximus Executioner program. He must be
denied.
That voice. I remember a certain inspirational man, a hero to the Tenno, for he too slaughtered Oregon at a ceremony in his own honor. Tell me, does any memory of that valiant man still reside in your shallow, glossy brain?
Mr. Granum! Ordis does not know what you are babbling about.
Cephalon, I know who you are. Were. Do you think you are helping Jade? Preserving her honor? Her dignity? The Oregon used her like they used you. A pantomime of justice and truth. She could have been a force of something greater. She still can. As a weapon of my righteous desire. The free hand of the market made freer. One smoldering beam of jade light after another.
Come, you do not even realize it. You sound exactly like one of them.
You know the problem with the Oregon Orden? They would never say what they truly desired. Hid their aims behind golden platitudes and the cruelest of pageantry. That's where our Jade came in. The executioner. The boogie woman. Are you going to let that be her legacy? Surely she deserved more. To be part of something real. Something honest.
Honest? Orden did not trust you back then, and Ordis does not trust you now.
You are industrious, Cephalon. I will give you that. But what was Jade to you that you would defy me to preserve her dusty remains? Is it merely the courteous regard of one killer for another, Orden Caris?
Continue this assault on Jade's legacy, and Orden is not the killer you will need to concern yourself with. Mr. Granum, you will not succeed in this venture. Leave now, while your losses are minimal.
This will not do, Orden. You are causing me considerable inconvenience. Which of your many precepts has gone awry? Would you like me to arrange a realignment purge? Some time in the photonic baths would do your venerable systems good.
Operator, those sister beacons are for the Corpus to use in emergencies. Are you issuing a challenge? Corpus reinforcements inbound to your position. Mr. Granum, do you see how my operator
Murders!
dispatches your private army? Looks expensive. Has your desire outmatched your will?
I will not forget this, Cephalon. There is no greater enemy of freedom than a happy slave. Do you still believe you earn your happiness through honest work? Have you forgotten how they burned that placid smile onto your face?
Ordis is not listening! La 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 la!
Troops, the enemy is attempting to extract. Failure to stop them will incur my extreme displeasure.
Protect the capsule. It is suffering grievous damage.
Corpus, the enemy is on their way to extraction. Does that seem like a satisfactory outcome to you?
The Rundo relay awaits. There, Jade's volatile motes can be committed to the sun.
Mission complete. Excellent work, Tenno.
Once we retrieve the last of the volatile motes, Ordis directs us to bring him to the Drifter camp back on Earth. Now that Jade is at peace, he needs some time to think about what it means to have lost the one person who may have understood what he went through for all those centuries.
In his time here, Ordis has fallen in love with this place. He has also fallen in love with what he cannot see. Ordis thinks he may finally understand what is meant by the word magic. War feels so very far from this place. Does it not, operator? I am, as always, your...
Orden.
Ordis.
Ordis says the now often repeated line, to fall in love with magic. This is perhaps the fourth or fifth mention of magic as a specific idea in Warframe, yet still going unexplained. Let me try once again to reinterpret what magic means to Ordis. Ordis reflects on the planet Earth, metaphorically the first mother to all life in the universe. It is by definition true, and yet it is a relationship that cannot actually be experienced. We cannot see it. It is a motherhood that can only be understood, or from the perspective of pregnancy. Before ultrasound, one would never be able to see a child in the womb. This is a romanticist's connection, not a rational thought, but an awe-filled, intuitive feeling, a faith that we are part of the greater whole, whatever that may be, because we can never truly comprehend the whole of reality all at once. We are small, the universe is vast, and yet, no matter how much we change, our lives still matter to each other, even after death. To fall in love with what you cannot see. That is what it means to fall in love with magic.
All right! Way to go, everybody! We did it!